common misconception that really has an impact on MedTech innovators is they think the finish line is when they receive clearance or approval by a regulatory body. And that is really just the start line. Especially here in the GCC, there has to be really 3 broad categories that is expected to be answered properly. It's about the data, about how you're going to patch the system, and about proof. So when I'm talking about the data, the questions that hospitals and healthcare delivery organizations are going to ask is, how do you protect your data? How do you maintain integrity of the data? How do you transfer the data? So a lot of questions about the data, especially with the data privacy rules here and throughout the region. And then the other part is patchability. So we have to look at, from a medical device, how do we operationalize it once it's deployed in the field and at scale? Because a single device is fairly easy to manage, but if you have 10,000 deployed throughout the region, and there's a vulnerability discovered in one of them, how do you manage that vulnerability at scale? And the third part I mentioned is the proof. So hospitals and healthcare delivery organizations today, they don't just want to see the checkbox that you're cleared by EU MDR or FDA or some regulatory body. They want to see a body of evidence that can trace back to the controls you put in place, because they are accepting the risk by putting that product on their environment. And they're accepting the risk from a liability perspective and also a patient safety perspective. I mentioned the data earlier, but it's also about patient safety, and that's a primary driver. When we talk about medical devices and cybersecurity, it's about the patient safety and about clinical operations and making sure if something happens, it doesn't affect the patient and it doesn't disrupt operations. So there's a lot of deployment gates, I like to call it. Approval is one thing, but getting it deployed, you have to go through a gate that focuses on some of the things I just mentioned.